Okay, continuing the vegetarian myth. Silent and spring were inseparable, 3 syllables, not 2 words. Hell was here, the oil refineries of northern New Jersey, the asphalt inferno of suburban sprawl, and the swelling tide of humans drowning the planet. I cried with Iron-Eyed Cody, longed for his silent canoe and an unmolested continent of rivers and marshes, birds and fish. My brother and I would climb an ancient crabapple tree at the local park and dream about somehow buying a whole mountain. No people allowed, no discussion needed. Who would live there? Squirrels was all I could come up with. Reader, don't laugh. Besides Bobby, our pet hamster, squirrels were the only animals I ever saw. My brother, well socialized into masculinity, went on to torture insects and aim slingshots at sparrows. I became a vegan. Yes, I was an overly sensitive child. My favorite song at 5, and here you were allowed to laugh, was Mary Hopkins' Those Were the Days. What romantic, tragic past could I possibly have mourned at age 5? But it was so sad, so exquisite. I would listen to the song over and over until I was exhausted from weeping. I have to keep watching the goats. Okay, it's funny, but I can't laugh at the pain I felt over my powerless witnessing of the destruction of my planet. That was real, and it overwhelmed me, and the political vegetarians offered a compelling salve. With no understanding of the nature of agriculture, the nature of nature, or ultimately the nature of life, I had no way to know that, however honorable their impulses, their prescription was a dead end into the same destruction I burned to stop. Those impulses and ignorances are inherent to the vegetarian myth. For 2 years after I returned to eating meat, I was compelled to read vegan message boards online. I don't know why. I wasn't looking for a fight. I never posted anything myself. Lots of small, intense subcultures have cult-like elements, and veganism is no exception. Maybe the compulsion had to do with my own confusion, spiritual, political, personal. Maybe I was revisiting the site of an accident. This was where I had destroyed my body. Maybe I had questions. I wanted to see if I could hold my own against the answers that I had once held tight, answers that had felt righteous, but now felt empty. Maybe I don't know why. It left me anxious, angry, and desperate each time. But one post marked a turning point. A vegan flushed out his idea to keep animals from being killed, not by humans, but by other animals. Someone should build a fence down the middle of the Serengeti and divide the predators from the prey. Killing is wrong, and no animal should ever have to die, so the big cats and wild canines would go on one side, while the wildebeests and zebras would live on the other. He knew the carnivores would be okay because they didn't need to be carnivores. That was a lie the meat industry told. He'd seen his dog eat grass, therefore dogs could live on grass. No one objected. In fact, others chimed in. My cat eats grass too, one woman added, all enthusiasm. So does mine, someone else posted. Everyone agreed that fencing was the solution to animal death. Note well that the site for this liberatory project was Africa. No one mentioned the North American prairie, where carnivores and ruminants alike have been extirpated for the annual grains that vegetarians embrace, but I'll return to that in Chapter 3. I knew enough to know that this was insane, but no one else on the message board could see anything wrong with the scheme. So on the theory that many readers lack the knowledge to judge this plan, I'm going to walk you through this. Carnivores cannot survive on cellulose. They may on occasion eat grass, but they use it medicinally, usually as a purgative to clear their digestive tracts of parasites. Ruminants, on the other hand, have evolved to eat grass. They have a rumen, hence ruminant, the first in a series of multiple stomachs that acts as a fermentative vat. What's actually happening inside a cow or a zebra is that the bacteria eat the grass and the animals eat the bacteria. Lions and hyenas and humans don't have a ruminant's digestive system. Literally, from our teeth to our rectums, we are designed for meat. We have no mechanism to digest cellulose. So, on the carnivore side of the fence, starvation will take every animal. Some will last longer than others, and those some will end up their days as cannibals. The scavengers will have a Fat Tuesday party, but when the bones are picked clean, they'll starve as well. The graveyard won't end there. Without grazers to eat the grass, the land will eventually turn to desert. Why? Because without grazers to literally level the playing field, the perennial plants mature and shade out the basal growth point at the plant's base. In a brittle environment like the Serengeti, decay is mostly physical, weathering, and chemical, oxidative, not bacterial and biological as in a moist environment. In fact, the ruminants take over most of the biological functions of soil by digesting the cellulose and returning the nutrients once again available in the form of urine and feces. But without ruminants, the plant matter will pile up, reducing growth and begin killing the plants. The bare earth is now exposed to wind, sun, and rain. The minerals leach away, and the soil structure is destroyed. In our attempt to save animals, we've killed everything. On the ruminant side of the fence, the wild beasts and friends will reproduce as effectively as ever. But without the check of predators, there will quickly be more grazers than grass. The animals will outstrip their food source, eat the plants down to the ground, and then starve to death, leaving behind a seriously degraded landscape. The lesson here is obvious, though it is profound enough to inspire a religion. We need to be eaten as much as we need to eat. The grazers need their daily cellulose, but the grass also needs the animals. It needs the manure with its nitrogen, minerals, and bacteria. It needs the mechanical check of grazing activity, and it needs the resources stored in animal bodies and freed up by degraders when animals die. The grass and the grazers need each other as much as predators and prey. These are not one-way relationships, not arrangements of dominance and subordination. We aren't exploiting each other by eating. We are only taking turns. That was my last visit to the vegan message boards. I realized then that people so deeply ignorant of the nature of life with its mineral cycle and carbon trade, its balance points around an ancient circle of producers, consumers, and degraders, weren't going to be able to guide me or indeed make any useful decisions about sustainable human culture. By turning from adult knowledge, the knowledge that death is embedded in every creature's sustenance, from bacteria to grizzly bears, they would never be able to feed the emotional and spiritual hunger that ached in me from accepting that knowledge. Maybe in the end, this book is an attempt to soothe that ache myself. I have other reasons for writing this book. One is boredom. I'm tired of having the same discussion, especially when it's not an easy discussion to have. Vegetarians can sum up their program in neat sound bites. Meat is murder. And self-evident solutions like those compelling 16 pounds of grain. I could come up with my own slogans. Monocrops are murder. The Million Microbe March. But they aren't understandable to the general public. I have to start from the beginning, from the first proteins self-organizing into life, moving to photosynthesis, plants, animals, bacteria, soil, and finally agriculture. I call this chat Microbes, Manure, and Monocrops. And I need a good 30 minutes for the backstory, which is essentially a basic education on the nature of life. And yes, this is information. Material, emotional, spiritual. We all should have been given by the time we were 4. But who is there left to teach us? And isn't everything that's wrong with this culture embedded in that question? But it's not just the amount of information that makes the discussion hard. Often the listener doesn't want to hear it, and the resistance can be extreme. Vegetarian isn't just what you eat or what you believe, it's who you are, and it's a totalizing identity. In presenting a fuller picture of food politics, I'm not just questioning a philosophy or a set of dietary habits. I'm threatening a vegetarian sense of self, and most of you will react with defensiveness and anger. I got hate mail before I'd barely started this book, and no thank you, I don't need any more. But I'm also writing this book as a cautionary tale. A vegetarian diet, especially a low-fat version, and most especially a vegan one, is not sufficient nutrition for long-term maintenance and repair of the human body. To put it bluntly, it will damage you. I know. 2 years into my veganhood, my health failed, and it failed catastrophically. I developed a degenerative joint disease that I will have for the rest of my life. It started that spring as a strange, dull ache deep in a place I didn't know could have sensation. By the end of summer, it felt like shrapnel in my spine. Excuse me. There followed years of ever-increasing pain and ever more frustrating visits to specialists. It took 15 years to get a diagnosis instead of a pat on the head. Teenager spines don't fall apart for no reason, and so despite my perfect symptom description, none of the doctors considered degenerative disc disease. Now I've got pictures and I get respect. My spine looks like a skydiving accident. Nutritionally, that's about what happened. 6 weeks into veganism, I had my first experience of hypoglycemia, although I wouldn't know that's what it was called until 18 years had gone by and it had become my life. 3 months into it, I stopped menstruating, which should have been a clue that maybe this wasn't such a good idea. The exhaustion began around then, too, and it only got worse, along with the ever-present cold. My skin was so dry it flaked, and in the winter it itched so badly it kept me up at night. At 24, I developed gastroparesis, which again wasn't diagnosed or treated until I was 38 and found a doctor who worked with recovering vegans. That was 14 years of constant nausea, and I still can't eat after 5 p.m. Then there was the depression and anxiety. I come from a long and venerable line of depressive alcoholics, so clearly I didn't inherit the best mental health genetics. Malnutrition was the last thing I needed. Veganism wasn't the only cause of my depression, but it was a big contributing factor. Years went by when the world was made of a pointless gray weight, endlessly the same, punctuated only by occasional panic. I would routinely dissolve into helplessness. If I couldn't find my house keys, I'd find myself in a heap on the living room floor, immobilized on the edge of the void. How could I go on? Why would I want to? The keys were lost, and so was I, the world, the cosmos. Everything collapsed, empty, meaningless, almost repulsive. I knew it wasn't rational, but I couldn't stop until it had run its course. And now I know why. Serotonin is made from the amino acid tryptophan, and there are no good plant sources of tryptophan. On top of that, all the tryptophan in the world won't do you any good without saturated fat, which is necessary to make your neurotransmitters actually transmit. All those years of emotional collapse weren't a personal failing. They were biochemical, if self-inflicted. Is there anything as boring as other people's medical problems? I'll try to keep this brief. My spine isn't coming back, but eating a diet of grass-fed animal products has repaired the damage a bit and made a moderate dent in my pain level. My insulin receptors are also down for the count, but protein and fat keep my blood sugar stable and happy. I haven't missed a period in 5 years, though if I end up with cancer in my reproductive organs, I'm blaming soy. My stomach's okay, not great, but okay, as long as I take betaine hydrochloride with every meal. Between my spiritual practice and my nutrient-dense diet, I am now depression-free, and I am thankful every day. But the cold and the exhaustion are permanent. Some days breathing takes more energy than I have. You don't have to try this for yourself. You're allowed to learn from my mistakes. All the friends of my youth were radical, righteous, and tense. Vegetarianism was the obvious path, with veganism the high road alongside it. And those of us who did it long-term ended up damaged. If I'm questioning your lifestyle, your identity, you might feel confusion, fear, and anger while reading this book. But take my word, you don't want to end up like me. I'm asking you to stay the course, read the book, and explore the resources in the appendix, please, especially if you have children or want to. I'm not too proud to beg. Smokers will tell you there's nothing like an ex-smoker. The urge to proselytize the good news seems to flow with the attainment of salvation, or maybe in their case with oxygen. I've done my best to avoid a tone of moral superiority and aim for engagement. I hope I have succeeded. Ultimately, I would rather be helpful than right, especially considering the future we are facing and how much is at stake. The underlying values that vegetarians claim to honor, justice, compassion, sustainability, are the only values that will create a world of connection instead of domination, a world where humans approach every creature, every rock, every raindrop, all our furred and feathered siblings, with humility, awe, and respect. The only world with a chance of surviving the abuse called civilization. It is in the hope that such a world is possible that I offer this book. And that seems to be the end of Chapter 1. So, I will do Chapter 2 the next time.